Welcome to SonarFeed, episode 301. Don't lick your ballots.
It's very important life advice.
I mean, if the county tells me not to do it, and they say it repeatedly, I'm not going to do it. So, welcome. So, episode 301, we are here at the Berliner Pub in downtown Renton.
4th and Main.
Head of the Curve, which, by the way, I don't think I had noticed before is on some of the manhole covers.
The Ahead of the Curve.
Ahead of the Curve, yeah. I saw it the other day, and I had never seen that before. So we got a shout from Kristen that it used to be on signs. I do think I've seen that. Anyway, so I am Tom
Does it look a
Biro.
little like old school Batman diagonal on this?
I mean, it probably does. We could probably fix that. Maybe. We're going to call in a producer who's dining. Can you tilt us a little towards me?
Towards you, Tom?
I think so.
Better to my...
Keep
Oh.
up. A little more. No.
Keep going.
Getting there.
Oh,
That's
close.
good.
Oh.
Leave it. Dig it. Perfect. Thank you.
Producer realizes he should have brought his phone.
Yes.
It's all good. Anyway, I'm Tom Biro, a.k.a. Bougie Hooli. To my left, your right. Still kind of tilted.
Yeah,
but
I was about to
we're
say.
just going with it at this point.
Turner, Mickey Turner ESQ on the Twitters. Happy Monday, everybody.
Happy Monday. We do have a few folks here at the Berliner, which is great. We're not singing Staying Alive, though you were not here for this. But we, and again, if you're going to tilt that, do it just ever so slightly. We did sing You're Going Home with Coronavirus in GA.
It's a deep. It's a deep cut.
It was really good. Normally, it's just you're going home in a Seattle ambulance. It was funny. There's some tentative behavior going on here. We're just gonna leave it.
Yeah.
It's not the weirdest thing currently happening in the area, so we'll just let it go for the evening.
Yeah.
Trying to help.
So Mickey had fun things going on. So maybe let's just dive into that.
Yeah,
So
God.
Mickey has not watched the game yet.
Yeah.
He has, I'm sure, paid attention to the happenings in and around the game. I'm just going to make that assumption going in here. Ish. Not that there hasn't been anything else going on in life or other. But what did you do on Saturday?
Yes, so I was out about 3 hours away from here in the lovely city of Wenatchee, Washington, attending a daddy-daughter dance with my daughter, obviously. If I didn't have a daughter, it'd be a little weird for me to be going out there.
Just move on.
It was interesting. I'd never been to one before. She's just turning 7, so I guess it's kind of about that age when you start doing that kind of stuff. It was a lot of people, a lot of dads and daughters there. I'd say there's probably 150.
That's a good crowd.
150 combination of dads and daughters there. I tried to actually get her to dance. Some people advised me that I should try to, embrace the chaos. She wasn't into it, so I was happy about that. But I did try for the record. And yeah, she just kind of ran around, and we bet on a bunch of prizes. Didn't win anything. That was unfortunate. And yeah, it was a good, wholesome family experience. And then she stayed with me in the hotel that I was staying in overnight, and we hit the hot tub for a little while. So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
How many cake and cookies type items did your child have?
Why don't you set an over/under, and then we'll solicit some guesses.
I'm gonna say six items.
6 individual items, whether they be like a cookie or a piece of cake. They didn't really have cake,
Six
but
different types of items.
6 different types of items.
So like this kind of cake and maybe another kind of cake, and then
Mhm.
like 2 different cookies
Yeah.
and whatever. So like, do you want me to say individual items?
Yeah.
11. Do you actually know?
I was paying mostly attention. I would say that.
How many did you have?
I had 0.
Okay, so
Uh,
you were on brand.
I was on brand.
Okay.
11 would have been a good shout. Individual items. They had little like cups of like gummy worms and stuff like that, which had like 2 or 3. So I'm not counting those as individual items. But with that caveat, I would say she was slightly under, but only slightly.
Okay.
Only slightly.
So
I'd say 9 or 10.
who went to sleep first?
Oof, God. She did, but the hour was extremely late.
That's easy.
Yes, that over under. If you would have said it at 11, over would be the correct answer there.
What's the normal bedtime?
Oh, for her, I want to say around 8.
However, that's a pretty significant overage there.
To be fair, that's her school time when she's with mom. Bedtime.
This is a different.
Yeah, usually with me, it's I'm happy if I can get her in bed by like 9:30, but it's usually on the weekend, so it's
so
not
you're the party
usually
parent.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'd like to get her into bed earlier. It just does not happen. It's
because you're the party parent.
Yeah, not intentionally. it's more by default.
Okay, I
But
see.
yeah,
Well, that's a worthy reason
yes.
to not be at CenturyLink Field. Also, not contracting coronavirus. Do you know who listened? 7,000 people.
Yes, yes.
I know they estimated 33. It was less than that, but not by much. Like, if I really were to guess, I'd say it was 30, maybe high 20s. I had texted Jeremiah Oshan probably about 6:40 or thereabouts, and my guess would be, and again, just being in GA and like having a decent view of the stadium, that there was maybe 5,000 people around their seats at that point, 20 minutes before kick.
Yeah, I did see a picture like right
And I
before
took
kick.
a panorama, and I'm like, wow, there's no one here. And then at kick, it was very busy in there. So,
well, that's
it
good
is-
news.
It is what it is, considering, I was spot checking during the day. SeatGeek, there were sections with hundreds of tickets available, like each section, and I was just randomly picking them. It seems like a lot of people just kind of put them out there, I'm guessing, and then just decided to go
Yeah.
versus trading them in for other things. It was interesting. I'd say the whole day was interesting. I genuinely expected them to come really close to canceling, and maybe they did. And ECS was in touch with the team for the bulk of the week. There was a lot going on.
I don't think they were particularly close to canceling. I think it was an issue.
I thought they would get closer to it, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Ultimately. And did you watch the press conference?
I have
did yesterday.
Well, it's just after the game. I think I haven't.
Yeah, I don't even know.
I'm just starting
this
to
point.
get back in. But
Well, let's talk about that later.
yeah,
But
before I left, they were basically saying that the only way that they were going to cancel is if they got a directive from King County or the state, basically saying you should not hold this game because you're going to cause an outbreak or something like that.
If the schools had closed, they would have
Yeah.
canceled the game. That seems to be a big arbiter for organizations right now. But the thing to me that was interesting was just, again, having been in touch with the team and obviously like ECS does a newsletter, in advance of the match. And like, this is the kind of thing we would message against or for in any situation. And Thursday, I had gotten a heads up, hey, the Scarves Up newsletter is going to go out soon, blah, 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 blah. And then it didn't for hours. And I was walking down First Ave downtown, and I got a push from Slack, and it was that an employee of CenturyLink Field who had worked the Dragons game a couple weeks earlier had tested positive.
I thought that might have moved.
And
the
I was
needle a
like,
little bit.
they can't have a game now. And that didn't change.
No.
And it, it kind of dragged a little bit from there, and there was obviously a lot of back and forth. I thought that was really going to make people stay home, truly.
The
employee
positive,
situation.
yeah.
Yeah, and I get that it could be low possibility of that particular person because they had been at that one event or whatever. I was like, but there are other vendors and whatnot who may have come in contact with that person who also worked other events. But then Thursday, late day, I didn't even catch this until yesterday. Taste of Washington canceled, which is in the CenturyLink Event Center, and that's coming up a little bit later this month. It is there's a gala that happens in August that's big, but it's a $500 ticket. This is $100-something ticket. to go in and do massive tastings and like all sorts of really cool things in the event center. It's a huge event. It is probably the biggest public event that the Washington Wine Commission does all year long, and that got canceled Thursday or Friday. That was kind of nuts. And then I guess Sunday in the event center there was like the Seattle Bike and Outdoor Convention or whatever that was. That got canceled for Sunday. But nothing seems to be changing right now, although now schools are starting to close. Snohomish had just said they're closing for tomorrow, the school district, excuse me, and then it sounds like there's some Tacoma things going on. So again, this is just, it's like every 10 minutes something changes.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the information you have now is, not operative, a day or even 12 hours down the line. And that's probably how it's going to be until you kind of get, to the point where they have a handle on, when a vaccine's going to be made and available.
18 months from now.
Yeah. And if that's the timeline, do they have a handle on, how the virus is going to spread? And just if it seems like we're getting at the point where they are going to start canceling sporting events in the United States. Serie A is now canceled for the.
Well, Italy is closed.
Italy is canceled.
Which
for the time
it went
being.
from the north, like a decent chunk of the country, and again, Italy. If you haven't been, like, it's fair sized country, but again, most of Europe overlaps with most of the United States. If you really kind of break it down, the area that had been quarantined. You can drive it in not that long of a time. Like, I've driven a pretty significant portion of it. And that went today from like, oh, we think we might cancel some sporting events. Oh, yeah, this is going to happen, to like, I stopped looking at the internet for a couple hours and then came back and like Italy was completely locked down. And Ashley, Smashly FC, if you know him on the Twitters, is there now with his wife, and they will be there for the time being. So they are they're actually, I think, a bit further south than where most of the quarantines had been originally, and they are safe and sound as far as we understand. But that probably escalated their trip in a way that they were not hoping for, which is unfortunate. But I think now, like, you're starting to see some numbers in the U.S. that maybe are changing perspectives, and I know they're happening in like media places. I mean, California has been interesting. Washington just continues to
ground zero, essentially, at this
like
point
New York
in the States.
New York State, went pretty nuts, including today, and we were talking about it pre-show, that a 7-year-old girl in the Bronx had tested positive, and the head of the Port Authority in New York City, and some pretty, interesting situations have happened there. It's four members of Congress at this point, so that's interesting. And that's actually a good point, is that we've had now those four. I'm sure there's some state level people here, but if you have been paying attention to a lot of the international stuff over the last few days, there's like a minister in France, like a double-digit % of like Iran's parliament, and there were a few other, I think it was actually the head of Lombardy in Italy, which was one of the places that was quarantined. So some pretty significant political folks who, again, are shaking hands and kissing babies, not to be silly, daily. And that's not great. So, it's going to have an impact, local, regional, national, international. But yeah, a little bit scary.
Yeah, and the four major sports that are currently in session, and I expect that the NCAA is going to follow suit, have closed closed locker rooms to the press for the time
tournaments
being.
coming up.
Yeah, NCAA. I'm sure they'll do the same. See, all of the championship games are the conference championship tournament is going on right now.
Right now,
The actual selection Sunday is next Sunday, and then the tournament starts a week from Wednesday.
But that's where, like, I haven't looked at where, the regionals and whatnot are right now. But
I think Spokane is one of the spots.
And I don't. Again, does Spokane have many cases as of right now?
I'm not sure. I mean,
think it's still mostly Western Washington.
Yeah, I think so.
but again, not like we're really testing at any significant volume in the state of Washington at this point. Anyway, it's an interesting thing, and not to like belabor this discussion, maybe to kind of come back to it, like sports is a thing that kind of brings us all together. It's sort of why we're all here in this first place. So it's something that's going to get ripped out from under us in a lot of different ways, and it's going to be really, really interesting for the first time that I can remember, except when there's been natural disasters and, like earthquake at the World Series, or tornadoes and hurricanes and other things. Like, games just don't really get canceled. Like, it's not
in the U.S.
thing.
unless it's 9/11. They were canceled for a week, and then the NFL was back, and baseball continued, and it's going to be an interesting. The United States just does not cancel these types of things. They do not. This isn't America type deal. It's just one of those things they don't do, and if it escalates, and we're gonna start seeing that, I think we'll probably know we'll obviously know more soon, but I think in the next couple of weeks you'll probably start to see some cancellations,
right,
or postponements of some games.
Do you think the USA would do closed door, or do you think they would postpone?
MLS would probably postpone because they rely on attendance and those revenue streams more than the other sports. Baseball doesn't rely on attendance hardly at all, so they could get away with canceling. That would hurt their TV deals, but they already get those, so it's not like it's kind of like a force majeure type deal, act of God. It's unlikely that they would be able to get refunds.
But like NBA has already started talking about it reportedly, and LeBron was like, absolutely not, I'm not playing. Like, if we have empty houses. I will say, like, hockey, basketball with no one in an arena would be a very different thing.
That is just, I can't even imagine what that, they rely on atmosphere. I mean, granted, attendance at some of those games isn't all that hot, but that's the difference between like a 12,000
sit right on top of a court that you could run onto. Like the proximity is just a very, very different thing.
There's a difference.
Whereas everybody's played in Houston at least once, so they're like, 3,000 people are here. If
Chivas USA,
like we've all seen that. And again, not to like poke fun, but like that's a distinct possibility. But I think your point on MLS, needing that ticket revenue, is a big one.
Yeah, they're overly reliant on that. I mean, they would like not to be, but that's just the way it is right now. So they'd be highly likely to postpone the games. Although at some point you would have to cut them out entirely, because you're not going to be playing games in
just play every 3 days,
January
just
or December.
Keep playing forever.
Oof, yeah.
I mean, we did shorten the season by a month plus, so.
I mean,
there's some room there.
I mean, it is built in, and it's the championship game is housed at the site of the winner, so it's not like it's a neutral site game where there's particular issues. There's only three or four teams where that would be a problem. So maybe they postpone MLS Cup and we go back to a December, or heck, maybe they do go to a neutral site, warm weather place. They've got plenty of stadiums that could house a game if they had to move it to December, and they didn't want to worry about being in Toronto again in
but you could
sub-zero
totally
temperatures. Yeah, there's plenty of options for them. Again, we're just a bit cart before the horse type talking.
Totally.
But again, if it escalates, then it's going to be a real conversation, and then in the next 3 to 4 weeks, you have to figure the other shoe's going to drop, at least as far as sporting events are concerned.
Let's get into. I have one more thing to drop on this, and then we can get back into Sounders from the weekend. Just looking at the Euros, that the Olympic Stadium in Rome is supposed to host the opening game.
Oh well, that's not going to happen.
So,
or most likely not going to happen.
Well, I mean, it's the June 12th. It looks like so.
Well, maybe they might just kick the Euros to 2021,
which I have heard is a possibility.
Because there's no Confederations Cup, so that summer window is now open for a tournament, so they could easily do that. I mean, again, it's not something you want to do, but at some point you got to make those decisions. So we'll see what they do. It's an absolute mess.
Don't the teams have most of their revenue already? Tickets?
Yeah, yeah,
They would have to consider there's no guarantees.
yeah. The question was, don't most teams have the income from their season ticket bases?
Like
and
you've
that's
paid it off as of last month. Right?
last month,
So-
yeah, and that's absolutely true. And the problem you're going to run into there, the Sounders may have made accommodations for those people who didn't want to go to that game on Saturday, and whether the league at large would engage in something like that is up in the air. Who knows? I think most of them would be content to do that for one game,
Yeah.
understanding that it's a good look to try to make some accommodations. But if you start having to cancel half of the season, then at that point you're going to have to ask or answer some tough questions from your fan bases, who are going to say, well, wait a minute, we didn't get what we were paying for. And at that point you start looking at the fine print of your season ticket agreements and see if acts of God or pandemics are covered in the refund policy.
Well, and that's the thing. Like in this, and we saw with South by Southwest being canceled in Austin, Texas, which is would have been coming up this week.
Yeah.
Having been to it, like it's, take a New York City level of people and put them in downtown Austin, like in the core, let alone in the suburbs. I think the estimates were from last year. Economic impact is like $350 million gone.
Yeah.
So like they do staff up, people do travel in. Like thankfully they were early. It wasn't like they announced it the day before.
Yeah.
But we're going to start to see more and more things like that. We've seen it with a handful of trade shows. Google has a couple of events that it's canceled. South by Southwest is canceled. But I think you're going to start to see it with like movie festivals and like all sorts of other things. And there's some markets that are going to have like just dramatic changes to their, economic survival.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about economic assistance for hotels and the entertainment or the travel industry at large, and you're probably going to start to see some relief packages start to get proposed. And we all remember when the economic downturn happened in 2007, and they started with the bailout talk.
Yeah.
And how many trillions of dollars in economic aid was ultimately passed.
But hey, we have cars.
Yeah, that's true. So you could start to see that kind of stuff, although we're a ways away from that.
We are.
Although with the Dow
we're talking
dropping 2,000 points or
They were
whatever it
talking
was.
today about. By the way, if you notice me do weird things, I'm trying to not touch my face, and it's really, really hard. I'm like, oh, my glasses are sliding. Let me fix that. There was the thing thrown over the wall today about like payroll tax, kind of a decrease in that, which unfortunately affects, I think, things like Social Security and other things. So maybe not the best of decisions, but it's going to be really interesting. Hope had made a comment in the chat, which we should talk a little bit about a little bit later, about like local stuff, like things we're starting to see change, because I think that's relevant to folks that are watching and that are here. Before getting into the match, Hunch Bunch points out what we talked about just pre-show, that Santa Clara County had banned gatherings over 1,000 people. So Sharks are impacted. San Jose Earthquakes. I haven't looked at their schedule, but
I think
would
they have
be
one
impacted.
game in the meantime.
No NFL right now.
Yeah.
But there are a couple sports teams there. There's some other stuff, that presumably happens, concerts and otherwise, and that is the loudest thing I've heard here in a long time.
The Quakes have one game during this ban.
Okay. And then Sounders are away this week in Houston, but back next week, right? Oh, no, 2 weeks? Next
I think so. I think that's right.
Where are we now? We are
The
the
they have
ninth.
three,
So
of
they
the,
play
3 of their 4 games.
play this week in Houston, next week versus Dallas back here. I'm sure it's close to game time decision, unless the county or the state comes down with something. Just like Buzz today, and I haven't caught up on what I have been reading, but it sounded like there were some follow-ups today with businesses and whatnot from Jay Inslee's office about just guidance kind of moving forward. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what's going on, because there's definitely some rumors about permitting and events and other stuff, because as it starts to get a little nicer in Seattle, one can only presume, gatherings are going to start to happen.
Yes.
Or not. And we'll go from there. So let's kind of dig into the match. You obviously have not. You've maybe read something.
Yes, I've reviewed. I just have not watched.
Interesting match, to say the least. I mean, not at all surprised to see a Zardes goal. Like, that's a thing that always ends up happening.
I think I called a 2-2 tie, so I thought they were. It was going to be a tough match. For the Sounders.
Again,
just generally speaking,
they've reloaded.
Mm-hmm.
They were Columbus was pretty good.
Yeah.
Sounders did some really good things. I think there's a couple of areas that I have some concerns about. But it's also your center back pair has now played together twice now,
yes.
So between CCL and this, so like that's a thing that will hopefully come to. Passing out of the back is not great, and there have been people who are like, "Oh, the defense is fine." The defense is actually fine, like as defenders, but as they're like regrouping and bringing the ball back out, they're making dangerous passes and doing things that. I think we were so lucky for 10 years to have, center back pairs that like knew each other, inside and out. That I'm personally, I'm gonna have to get used to watching Arriaga's style of play because it's not Chad Marshall. It's such a different thing. But I think there was some stuff that happened the other night, just like on kind of the offensive side of the ball, that was really, really attractive. There was a ball from Goose to Morris, just like not like a full field switch, but a pretty long ball down the field, cross to the sideline, that just got brought down and was just fantastic. That was pretty good. Morris had some pretty fantastic plays all around.
I'll take one more.
Same. Please. All in all, felt pretty good about the team. There's some gaps. I was so bummed for Ibarra for getting called offside.
Yeah, I saw the highlight on that.
Would that redeem him for the 3 sitters missed the week prior? Yes.
Yes, it would have.
And then he gets called for offside, and I'm like, oh. And then they subbed him off.
Yeah.
It was the game we all expected. You're playing a team from the other
team
conference
who's
good.
I think maybe the best team in the East when all's said and done, especially with Atlanta's injury issue. I put that caveat out there, but they're probably going to fight it out with NYCFC for first place. So, but just with that said,
I think all in all, we should generally be happy when you come out with a draw from a tough team.
Yeah.
It's kind of like playing SKC when they're really good. Like right now, Columbus when they're pretty good. Also, early season, you're still missing your best player, core players. Week after week. Yeah. Chemistry is a thing. We all know that from in a soccer perspective. But you can see the magic there. They're like, oh. So if we had that guy and then we put a Ladero in the middle of that, that's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So confidence was there, but this was, and I had tweeted it. I was like, hips don't lie, stats do lie. Like if you just looked at the stats for this match, you would have thought it would be 5-0 Sounders. Between just the corners and just some of the other metrics.
Yeah.
Was not great that they were unable to finish. And I would say the thing that really stood out to me was on corners or crosses, Columbus put a lot of people behind the ball. One, looked like they outmatched from a height perspective Sounders by 6 inches.
Okay, yeah.
They defended everything that got swung into the box. You were at the end of the game. You were like, I'm not even expecting anybody to touch the ball.
All right, so we asked Schmetzer about this. In fact, I think I may have asked him about this. It's just that they're not going to be a team that is going to produce a lot from corner kicks and set pieces, at least if they're lumped into the box, because they just don't have that guy who is a Chad Marshall who's going to get you 3 to 5 goals just on corners from headers. I have no way of measuring this, but they have to be one of the shorter teams in the league at this point. And because of that...
So their height's going to go down when Ladero
Yeah.
is back.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. I mean, granted, he's obviously not going to be in
And
the
not to poke
center
fun,
of
but
the
like
pitch.
totally
Yeah.
seriously, like that's important, and that's not something we've been used to seeing. There's been somebody who's
Yeah.
just gonna have a header goal.
Yeah. It's not likely going to be their way of getting goals this year. I mean, they're going to have plenty of other ways to do that, and they're going to be a very good team, but that's just not going to be a weapon. Most likely, they're going to be able to deploy at this point. They just simply don't have the height or the athleticism from key positions to do that. I mean, Ymar will probably be pretty good from a set piece.
Yeah.
But again, he's 6'1", 6'2".
But at a minimum, he's gonna move somebody off the ball.
Yeah.
Uh,
But aside from him, you don't really have a whole lot.
yeah.
And that's not going to be part of their arsenal this
Well,
year.
I think you have a couple of people like a Svensson or a couple people that like you're gonna feel pretty good about on the other end of a cross. But as
that's going to be a secondary, like a flick on, like we saw in the,
exactly
in the game
and,
winner.
And like Hunch Bunch has pointed out in the comments is like we were coming up the wings all the time. If the team knows that it's not going to be getting those crosses or set piece goals, the only thing that we've been doing is like Jordan up the left side of the field, going to the 18 and then swinging the ball in. Like if we know that's not going to be that successful, or maybe it will, and like we'll have some chemistry in 2 weeks and this will feel different.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
you
the
can
team
see
is
a
gonna be-
difference though
yeah.
with like even Rui Diaz, where he'd get the ball at the top of the area and would just be like, oh, I'm gonna make a move here, and like I have to take a shot. He is a player I think I'm curious to see how the return of Ladero, when that happens, changes, because he looks different in this particular offense.
Yeah, Spencer said that Rui Diaz misses Ladero. Like, that's just, they have a partnership that has worked obviously quite well over the 18 months or so that he's been here. And hopefully he'll be out he'll be here this week. I'm wondering if they maybe hold him out for one more week, though, just to be, 110%, to use a cliche, sure, and maybe just decide not to send him down to Houston for that match, especially because they're going to be home, the following, after that game. And yeah, it's just one of those things where they're just going to, until they get Ladero back, there may be just some growing pains trying to figure out how to get Rui Diaz more involved. Again, I say that without having watched the game on Saturday, but that's obviously been, leading up until that point, that's been an issue. It's just getting him a sufficient number of touches to even be dangerous. And then obviously a little bit of bad luck and maybe some poor finishing on his part too. And, just kind of combined for, a bit of a slow start. But he got the penalty eventually.
Eventually, yeah. It was interesting because I think having been in the ECS section, you almost stop watching the keeper, and so like your brain is like keeper's off the line, and you didn't really process it, and then all of a sudden like you watch the ref walk away, and you're like, oh, he jumped really early, and then I rewatched it, and I was like, that guy jumped really early. And it's funny because I remember when he got signed, it was, what was that, qualifiers? What was it?
Rui Diaz?
No, Room, the keeper for Columbus.
Oh, okay.
Was like new this year. He was in one of the international tournaments actually.
Yeah, they
and,
had
had some decent games, and then just one day was signed by Columbus.
Okay,
So-
okay. It's ringing a bell. It's coming back to me. But yeah, you're right.
But Sounders aren't really the team that's racking up penalties on a regular basis. So like, okay, I'll take it. It's also weird to watch Rui Diaz take them versus Ladero or other people, over the years. So I think we had we were spoiled with
obviously
Brad
Evans.
Evans. for a
Evans
really
took
long
like
time.
99% of the penalties when he was here.
But it's not that it was clunky, but I think something that Kyle Shields had pointed out a couple of weeks ago was like it was really hard to find the vibe in the game. Like the flow just seemed off. Now they won the coin toss apparently, or actually got to go the direction we all expect them to. It does make a difference. I do feel like it changes the vibe in the crowd. And hopefully that's helpful for the players on the pitch. But it was it was interesting to see just stats get dominated and Sounders not being able to like
Put it away.
complete
Yeah, I'm looking forward to rewatching it and just kind of seeing.
or just watching it.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Watching the rewatch and seeing kind of what you've outlined, and seeing if I kind of have the same feeling, because I think I will, just because a tie at home is always a bit annoying unless you pull out
Annoying
something.
is the word.
Yeah. Unless you pull out something at like the death, or come back from like 3 goals down, then you're obviously a little bit more happy with that.
Thanks, DC.
Yes, and New England as well.
Yes.
So just being down 1 goal and being a bit frustrated, and in the second half, we've seen that type of game from the Sounders before, and in the past has not led to them getting a point. That's
Right.
usually the
well,
type
these
of
are the games you lose 2-0,
Yeah.
and then you outshoot the team 15-1 or
Yeah.
whatever, and you're like, what?
Well, that'll happen
So,
here, yeah.
you know-
so getting a draw here, all things considered, considering that's what I expected going into the game, seems perfectly fine this early in the season, especially without having Ladero there and still working with the reworked back line. I'm interested in what because Jones started at left back.
Yes.
And Nuhu came in and won the penalty. So
New came in and, as expected, like changed the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
It was really interesting to see that swing. Not that, again, you're surprised at all. It was the right play, pulling Ibarra. I don't know in that situation if it makes sense. And it kind of looked like they flipped back and forth. And again, I haven't watched it on TV, so I can't say for sure. I don't know if you move Jones up in that situation, or you know what I mean, and put Nuhu back, or you keep Nuhu up kind of on the wing. I don't know.
Winger Nuhu, that sounds
No, but like he was up the field quite a bit.
He actually, people say that he doesn't get up the field, but he usually does.
He's
It's
up the field.
Yeah, he's up the field a fair amount.
But the thing that I love about him, and I think whether you love him as a player or not, love about what he brings to the table is he comes on the field and 100% of the time brings everything.
Yeah.
And just like changes the dynamic, mostly for the good.
Yes.
Every so often for the bad on like a defensive standpoint. But he's gotten so much better than he was when we first saw him. Yeah. But he has 100% always been that guy, which is really, really cool to see. And it happened, and it turned into a penalty, which ultimately...
Again, I can't wait to watch. Yeah.
Gets a point for Sounders, so can't complain about that.
No, and it was news. It looked like he had won the job out of preseason training, and maybe it's just one of those things. Smitzer has his guys, and he's had kind of I wouldn't say love-hate relationship with Nuhu, but just kind of
it's love frustration.
Frustration. That's a great way to put it, and so. I think he trusts him for the most part, but he's got his guys that he trusts implicitly, and I don't think Nuhu's at that point. And so he's more apt to go with Jones, even
who's also been in the doghouse.
Yes, on
like
occasion,
a couple times.
Yeah, and probably for more egregious incidents than Nuhu by and large. Remember his walkabout down to Trinidad and Tobago, and just decided to leave the team, a couple of days early, But again, he's produced when it's mattered, and he had arguably one of the best seasons a left back has ever had for Spencer when they won the title, and so I'm sure that I'll play something into it. But I mean, I wouldn't have any problem with Nuhu taking on the job full time, and then having Jones either play up the field or spell Nuhu on occasion. But he hasn't seen fit to do that, and there is something to be said for Nuhu's brand of chaos affecting a game late when you need it. So.
But it's a really weird thing, and I want to spend a little time talking about the LAFC Philly match. But something in that same vein, different level of skill, different type of player, but Ilsinho on Philadelphia.
Oh, he's the same.
Dude should start. But they're like, nope. 70th minute.
Yeah, just destroy.
Did you see the stat? It was like with him on the field, it's like plus 23 or some stupid thing, and with him off, it's like minus 15.
You remember the game last year when the
Yeah.
Sounders played him?
Yeah.
He was destroying the Sounders.
Yeah.
It was a miracle they got out of that game without giving up a goal. And he does that every week, essentially.
It's any time you turn on Philly, and I could give a damn about Philadelphia, but you turn the games
he
on,
is
and they're
must
like,
watch.
and Curtin actually said on the like sideline interview, he's like, "Oh yeah, we're bringing in El Seno in a couple of minutes. That's gonna happen," and then they do, and he's just dirty, out there. So, but in
He's
that
ridiculous.
same vein, like you want a player like that, and
Someone's got to be the sixth man, so to speak.
and there was that point where that was Clint Dempsey for a while, which by the way is unfair in a really big way. But if I'm Nuhu though. Very young still. Like, do you want to be that? Do you want to be that
22?
guy? I mean, maybe that's
Oh, he does not. He wants and feels like he should start,
Right.
And probably for a Ligue 1 team in France, based on some of the things that have been out there. But
you mean the things that someone's agent has probably
Yes.
posted on Twitter?
that is 99% accurate. And so, but I mean, I think for the time being, he's doing well, and he would start on what 75% of MLS
A
teams.
number of
Yes,
teams,
a number of MLS teams at this point, for sure. And so he's certainly a luxury. You just want. I'm actually fairly curious about how long the Sounders can hold on to him at this point, because I want to say this is his third year with the first team, third or fourth year with the first team. So I'm curious what his contract situation is out. He could be in the process, about at the point where he's just going to run it down and just leave on a free unless the Sounders sell him. I mean, the Sounders could certainly give him a raise if they haven't already, because he certainly deserves one. Even if he's not starting a full-time starter, he's certainly worth more than the MLS minimum. But he's fun to watch, and I would expect at some point, maybe this year, he finally gets the full-time role, but maybe they might sell him before then. So,
Do you think that although global soccer is gonna get just totally thrown off this season, it's gonna be super weird to see some of that, but it is Clint Dempsey's birthday.
yes, happy birthday, Clint.
Shouts to Deuce. That is a quality shout. Let's not talk about the ballot of Clint Dempsey right now. I don't think I can handle that at this very moment.
Should we order deuce drops?
We could do that.
I
Let's
regret those
not
words
do
coming
that.
out of. I
You
regret those
said that
words
and you were
coming
like,
out of my mouth.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
It's the worst idea I've ever had.
Yeah, we're going to go watch that music video a couple more times at the end of the night. That totally threw me off now. Now I'm thinking about deuce drops, which is not. Don't ever have a deuce drop. I'm looking into the camera. Don't do it.
That is a just say no 80s.
The U.S. men's national team and their depth is eternal. Like, it just goes. I did, by the way, see, total sidebar. Somebody tweeted today. They were like, I can't confirm this, but word is that Julie Ertz has just been hospitalized for carrying the U.S. women's national team on her back for a good portion of the match the other day. And I'm like, okay. Anyway, so the question I was going to ask you was, do you think, given the play time that has been setting lineups now for 4 matches, do you think the return of Ladero potentially changes formation at all, or we just lose some playing time for some people? It was almost lucky that Dellum was questionable.
Yeah, right.
It worked out. Svensson looked good.
Yeah. Oh, he's
but
what is there to say about?
Do you think that there's some sort of change, recognizing who's on the team right now, and frankly, the play of Jordan Morris? Not that we didn't expect him to be good, but he looks like actually less finisher, more core to the playmaking now than you might have expected him to be. If you looked at 2 years ago, Jordan Morris, would you have expected him to be this? Because it's basically the ball being swung in every other time down the field from Jordan
Yeah,
Morris.
there's not really a team in this league that has the personnel to match up with Morris.
It's a little crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just, which makes you wonder if he has any thoughts of going abroad. It doesn't seem like he's at a place where he wants to try to do that, but it just makes you wonder. But putting that aside, to answer your question, let's assume Lodero's back this week. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, and all that stuff. I'm not sure that they changed formation. I think it's just as simple as they moved Christian to where they wanted him to be on the outside, where he's certainly a more effective player than playing as a 10. And then you just move Lodero back into his normal spot, and then you've got, witness the full power of this fully operational
I'm
battle
okay
station.
with the battle station being fully operational.
Yeah. And so I think
What about
that's
just Morris, Rui Diaz up top? I don't know.
I personally don't like that because I don't think Morris is a forward, even if you play him like beneath Rui Diaz. He's not the hold-up guy. They tried that before.
Yeah.
It didn't work. You
I
want
don't
him.
know, Valdez was actually a really good
Yeah,
hold-up forward.
Mm-hmm,
No
absolutely.
one else was a good hold-up forward.
Yeah. The Sounders
For $1
never had-
million.
Yeah. Actually, he made like 1.7.
Thanks.
Yeah. He's even more than that.
That makes it better.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
He is not that player.
Yeah.
You're right.
So I think they're going to keep him where he is, where he's been most effective. And then you've got Roldan. You put him on the other side. You got Lodero and then Rudy as obviously up top. And then you've got João Paulo and Svensson as the D mids, and you plug and play, and you have lots of fun scoring lots of goals because I think that line, again.
Lodero's going to just blow this
Yeah.
up. Like, we
Yeah.
almost have no idea what this
I think
is going to look like.
I don't think people have forgotten how good Lodero is
No.
because that's impossible. But I think he has not played, so it's just kind of he's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. And I think once he gets back, number one, he's going to have something to prove. Number two, he's just a quality player. And so when he gets back, he's those two things are going to just work to the Sounders' favor. And then you've got the fact that he hasn't even played with João Paulo in a meaningful way this year yet. So, again, that could obviously work against the Sounders to some degree, at least in the first couple of games, because they don't really have that chemistry. But, again, Lodero came in when he first signed with the Sounders and was immediately one of the best players in the league. So maybe it could be one of those things where he's just that good that they just need a couple of practices to work things out. And it should be said that Lodero has been training over the last 2 weeks. It's not like he's been training to the side. You know when the player's far away, when they're not even
They're just jogging.
involved. Yeah,
over
they're
there.
jogging on the side, and they're doing just kind of passing drills and stuff like that. He's been training for the most part. He hasn't been 100% in, but he's been in to doing a decent amount. So it's not like he will come in this week, and let's assume that he's fully in training this week. This won't be the first week that he's been in there, and so hopefully that will allow them to establish that rapport a little bit more quickly. Again, the question I will have, assuming he's fit, is if they decide to just give him that extra week and don't even bother taking him down to
And
Houston.
just play him at home.
Yeah, just play him at home and just try to get through. Because they should, I assume we can talk about this, but they should be able to take care of a very mediocre Houston side with what they've got right now, even on the road, which we know in MLS is notoriously difficult. They should be able to handle what Houston has got. I mean, Manotas is
Well,
obviously
Houston's holding it down right now in 12th.
They got house
One
by
goal for, 5 against.
Yeah, I think they lost 4-0 to SKC.
Yeah, so they are 1-1. I think that's what it was, right?
Yeah, they held LA Galaxy, who are turning out to be, entirely mediocre at this point.
Weird.
Yeah, and then they got blitzed by Sporting Kansas City. I'll be on the road, so I think it was on the road.
Houston?
Yeah, they lost. Okay, yeah, they lost.
Houston
to SKC.
has not. Did they play at home?
Yeah, they played at home against
that's
LA Galaxy, and then lost on the
That's
road
right.
to Kansas City.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh,
they got
was week 1. That's right.
yeah. So they've got some issues again. Manotas is a stud. He probably is going to get sold in the summer because he almost got sold last summer. And I don't think they have Quintero yet, and they're missing a couple of other players as well. So if you contain Manotas, you've got a good chance of winning that game. And they're just I didn't think they were going to be particularly good this year. And if they don't have Quintero, who can create something out of
That's
nothing,
an evergreen tweet. Just
Yes.
post it now about Houston.
Yeah.
Houston. I didn't think they were going to be very good.
And
this
then,
year.
and then you've also got playing in that atmosphere. And then the game is early in the season, so the heat should not be a major factor. So that's
we're talking
a bit of a win.
7 o'clock, 7:30. Is it
5:30
Yeah,
locals. So
7:30. No, it's 5:30 our time.
Yeah,
right?
5:30 our time.
7:30 Houston time. Yeah, it's not going to be hot in Houston
No.
in March.
Yeah, it should be okay. So this is about as good a time as there is to play Houston.
So your Lodero comment is just a guess. You don't have educated.
Yeah, they're training this week. They obviously, but my main wonder is whether it was going to be open to the press, and it is. And actually, the public, their sound trainings are always open to public, so people are always free to come down and watch. So we'll be able to ask all the questions, observe Lodero in training. Hopefully, he is fully in. It sounded like he was close last week, although you could tell that they were going to keep him out. So we'll just have to wait and see. I think the training schedule they've got tomorrow and Wednesday. And then they may fly out on Thursday, and they usually train in the city that they're playing if they're going like a time zone or two away. So I think they're definitely not going to be here past Thursday. So we won't know too much about his status after Wednesday. So
We have
We'll see.
training comments coming. We've got a lineup suggestion from Eric.
oh
Who can't figure out how to put pictures in the YouTube chat.
oh
I mean, YouTube probably
So,
doesn't
352
want photos in the chat.
I know
they,
it's not
my
Nicky, but it might work.
352. They're not going to do that with their
Too
center-
many center
Yeah,
backs.
the lack of center backs. They're just
No,
they.
it's you drop Goose into the center. That's why it also works as a diamond midfield.
I
Goose in the center.
I still don't think they're going to do. That's not something. I mean, Smetzer has experimented with a 5-man or 3-man back line, depending on how you want to characterize it. But you just need another center back for that, just for depth purposes. I mean, they will certainly try it in a game potentially when they are trying to close it out. That's what they did frequently last year, bringing Torres in when they were trying to close out a game. But to start a game, I don't see it happening.
Hope, by the way, points out that Nico's, quote, extra work after practice was laying on the ground stretching. I mean,
He
it's
does
better than not doing anything.
And I would say that was one day he was doing extra training because they practiced every day last week, and he was doing extra work a couple of the extra days. So we'll see tomorrow and see how involved he is, because if he is full in training, then maybe Katie bar the door and they're ready to rock. But
What about Will Bruin?
that is an excellent question, because he is clearly itching to go. He
Seems super bored.
yeah. He's fully 100% in. And I think the only thing restricting him is the trainers and the medical staff's protocol on his recovery. And we asked if he was going to play in the Defiance game on Friday, and Smetzer said absolutely not. And that leads me to believe that they have something else lined up for him as far as his rehab is concerned. I think he will play in the Defiance game, and I know for sure he wants to play in one to just kind of get you got to get that first tackle out from under you, and
He wants to fuck shit up in Tacoma.
yeah, part of that. But the other issue, he did not sign the USL loan agreement. I don't think anything specifically prevents them from doing that in the future, but I need to get some clarification on how that works.
Well, that's interesting.
Because Danny Leva also didn't sign one, which is even more interesting. And because you would think, especially with Lodero coming back, not that they play the same position, but you would think that they would want to give him some additional minutes, but maybe they think he's just past it at this point.
I mean,
But
Lodero and Bruin on the Defiance, that could be fun. let's see what happens.
Oh, you would get massive complaints because I remember the Sacramento Republic game when they brought down, the Sounders bench depth.
They were unhappy.
They were not pleased with that development.
Oh, Torres? Cool.
Torres and Bruin. Who else played? There were a couple other guys that played in that game. Maybe Ship played in that game. Yeah, they were not happy about that. So, but I think Bruin, to answer your question, the Defiants have a game on Wednesday, and then they have a game. I think do they have a game on the weekend as well? Because I know they had like 4 of their first 5 at home, or 3 of their first 4 at home. So, I think Bruin's going to see at time in one of those games. And maybe it's just as simple as he just needs to sign a belated loan
They
agreement.
play the Loyal.
Yeah, on
Wednesday.
Landon Donovan's team, so I may have to go down for that one.
Is he gonna play?
Oh,
He might.
yeah, you never know. Tim Howard's playing for Memphis.
And then they – oh, wow. They don't play till the 22nd.
Okay, well, I guess it's not
they
too
play
far away.
OKC.
Okay,
Wow, they have 3 home in a row. 4 home in a row.
so I could absolutely see Bruin getting a time in one of those games before he makes his return. But Spencer said that his rehab is accelerated. He's well ahead of schedule. So Wednesday seems like a good shout to get him some time with that game, and then you get him.
And this is the easy thing. Like, that morning, you could wake up and be like, I guess I'm going to go play in Tacoma tonight.
Mhm.
Like, that could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as there's no issue with him signing the loan agreement, he just has to do that. So, but I'm just curious if maybe there's like a rehab provision where you don't have to sign a loan agreement. You can just get him down for a game. So we'll get clarification on that. So assuming he gets that game, and he's not going to play in Houston, but again, kind of like similar to Ladero, they can then bring him back and get him. He's not a starter, so that's the other thing, is you're not relying on him to come in and give you 90 minutes. So there's no reason that he couldn't necessarily come back for the game after Houston, which is Dallas, I think.
It is. Dallas.
And
then there's a break.
Yeah, and then they have so you get him in for Dallas, or you get him in for the Defiance game the day before or after, I think you said. And then he's probably back in full on April 3rd or whatever date that is, and he's ready to rock and roll.
Really weird. So Houston away this week, Dallas home the 21st, the following Saturday. Wow, March is just cruising by.
Yes, yeah.
And then a week off.
Week off, yeah.
And then the
Nashville
3rd versus
Nashville.
Vegas.
And then
away,
midweek, the
New England.
rescheduled New England game.
Right, that's right.
Is,
So quick turn. I could totally see them sitting on Ladero until the 21st.
I think there's a decent chance of that. I just don't know how much they're willing to risk him for a game that they should be able to handle, even though it's on the road in Houston, I think. But we'll see. These are points that they should get, so that's a reason to play him.
Yeah.
Even though it's on the road.
Cranking through some West teams here.
Mm.
I'll take it. Get it out of the way.
Yeah. And that New England trip, which is going to be a stinker, but at least you get it out of the way.
That's going to be rough, but you're
Yeah.
right. Just get it done, be
Yeah.
done.
New England
move on.
is likely to be pretty good, and yeah, it's better to play that game now. Maybe the result won't be great, but better to play it now than when it was previously scheduled, which was between away Vancouver and away LA Galaxy.
Let's not do that.
That would have been absolutely miserable. So that was just a massive win for the Sounders. I'm sure it helped New England out too, but
Hope suggests that Nico should be allowed to play in the USL.
well, I mean, he is allowed to do that.
Technically.
Yes.
It is very like minor league baseball where someone's like comes back from
Rehab
their
assignment.
Their ACL, and it's, Mariano Rivera playing for the Trenton Thunder or something. You're like, no, that is not fair. Why is Alex Rodriguez on your team? Like that's
yeah. There's
Exactly.
rehab things happen all the time, and special reference that as well as part of what Defiance is kind of their mission is. I mean, it's obviously to develop players to the first team, but it's also to give young kids on the Sounders some minutes and for the occasional rehab assignment.
So it's a little bit before 9. I know there were some random comments and questions. Carrie asked about signings. Window's still open, right?
Yeah, for
a
a
while,
while.
right?
Yeah, right. May 10th, I want to say, give or take. Don't quote me 100% on that, but it's the early part of May. So yeah, we've
Probably
got
no
2 months.
Italian players for a while.
We got 2 months. The Sounders have no money, budget money, not money. They've essentially.
I was like,
yes,
really?
yeah, they have plenty of.
I was like, I saw the concession prices.
But they're from everything Garth has said, and you can look at they have their 3 DP slots filled,
Right.
and that has consequences. It means that they're not going to be able to do their usual midseason DP signing. They may be able to get a TAM guy in here in the summer, but it's not going to be before the summer because again,
They're going to re-sign Tomas.
well,
No.
no. And I think to the extent they're able to sign anybody, and again, they're going to be digging in the couches for loose change to find the budget space. I'm not sure where. I think center back is clearly one spot where they could use a 4th player, and Sam Rogers is apparently, this is not confirmed, maybe gone, not gone from the organization, but maybe in Mexico. It may have joined the Olympic team. That's not confirmed by any stretch of the imagination. It's just some buzz I'm hearing. And so
Okay.
and we have just a breaking news.
Breaking news!
Yes,
I don't have a Chiron.
Metro Parks has passed the letter of intent for the Sounders.
Oh, thank God.
For the stadium, not the Sounder Stadium, 4-1. So that's good news. So that just means that it is now going to be discussed among the parties and negotiated to allow them to come back to both parties at some point in the future to pass the final deal to get the stadium built in Tacoma, which would house the Defiance and we presume the OL Reign, or if they were to leave for some reason, another NWSL team that would be part of the deal.
Don't say that.
Yeah. At this point, it's certainly will be the OL Reign, but I'm just saying if they were to want to
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
If they were to want to move at some point, there would have to be a replacement team, and that would probably be something that the Sounders would have something to do with. But that's good news.
You just want to like load the magazine there?
Yes.
Like what just happened? Eric had a comment from earlier today that I want to jump into. I'm not sure I want to comment on the Reign's new branding. Like I again, marketing me is like, okay. Person who likes the Reign crest me is like, ooh, bummer. I don't know.
I find it not offensive, but I don't know if I'm the target demographic for that.
Yeah. So earlier, Eric asked you, is it unreasonable to be surprised that the NWSL doesn't have a CBA yet? How long did MLS play with one, if at all?
With one or without one?
Without one, excuse me.
I do not believe MLS is this probably goes back before my time. So I'm since there has been a CBA, they have not ever played without one. They've either played under the existing CBA or they've extended the old one. I did talk to the MLS Players Association about the new CBA. Cheap plug, you can find that interview on Sounder Heart podcast. And we talked a little bit about kind of the historical negotiations that they've had with MLS and kind of where they've come from. And the Players Association they weren't happy historically with how MLS dealt with them, as far as the restrictions on the players and the low salaries, kind of the standard stuff that labor is typically not happy with management about. But it's been so long since they've not played with the CBA that I don't think it is not anything that really enlightens this discussion. And let's keep in mind that the USL Championship and USL League One are still operating without a CBA. And those leagues, the USL League One is only 2 years old. So, okay, we'll set that one aside. But the USL Championship in its current form has been around for 5 years, I think, now. And they are still working on a CBA. So that's probably an analog for, figuring out what the NWSL should be. And the U.S. Soccer, the men's U.S. national team, have been working under the expired CBA for, I think, now 3 years going.
They should just not get another contract at this point.
The funny thing is, I think we talked about this, is that the U.S. Soccer Federation has, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but they've complained about how much both the men and the women are making as far as their income from national team games, and pointing out that other national teams and federations, the national teams don't take any money, or it's just so nominal.
We've touched on this.
Yeah.
It's like, also those players play for Arsenal,
yes, and so they're making $3 or $4 million a year as a backup left back, as opposed to in the in the States, where if you are a backup left back, you're making about $50,000. If you happen to make it to the national team, that's a significant addition to your income. And there's just the general differences between how things work here and how things work overseas. So, as far as the NWSL is concerned, that's a fantastic question. I should definitely dig into that, and because that's kind of the thing I like to do, and to kind of see where they're at. There were some concessions made by NWSL ownership, increasing the minimums, increasing the investment. But as far as what the CBA status is, that excellent question. I will look into it.
It's your assignment.
Yes, that's my homework.
So let's talk about this LAFC Philadelphia match.
So good. I loved it.
Again, was sitting around last night. It's like, oh, there's a game on. Cool.
It's the home of the
champions. And by champions, you mean not the champions.
Yes.
As much as I love the supporter shield, cool.
We've been told
I
over
did
and
enjoy
over again
I did
that
enjoy, was it
the
Brad
support
went on a good tangent with just like photos of championships. I was like, that was amazing. So like,
but that game was
this
incredible.
is not positive
So good.
about either team or negative. It was actually a fun game to watch on television because you're like, I'm a neutral.
Yeah.
I hate both of your teams for different reasons. I can't stop watching this game. I'm like, oh, your keeper is terrible. Maybe you should have paid that other guy that was on your team already.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to allow Carlos Vela to get the ball at all near the 18? Don't do that. Oh, you're going to let this guy take a free kick from 40 yards away and put it in the net? This game actually had everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's the SNL sketch.
Yeah.
Like, it is that.
It was missing a red card. That was basically all the only thing that
dude ran around with blood on his jersey.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah,
and I thought that was a you don't do that, and isn't that a FIFA rule? Anyway, that guy was unstoppable. Finally, got subbed off for a horrible leg cramp.
For blood loss.
Right, probably. Right.
You lose 2 pints of blood. Yeah.
I mean, there were a couple things that jumped out. One, Carlos Vela, love him or hate him, super interesting to watch.
Yeah.
They had a goal that was called for offside, a ball to Rossi early
yes.
that was just threaded through defenders. And you were like, oh, that's going to get defended.
Yeah.
No, he just ran past them, got the ball.
I mean, he was legit offside.
Oh,
so
totally.
It wasn't a
But it
complaint,
was amazing.
It was incredible.
But the fact that the ball got through was outstanding. But also, they had 4 homegrowns on the field at one point.
Yeah, Philly. Yeah. I mean, that's their
Aronson,
absolute brand.
who scored in the 69th minute.
Yeah, nice.
Which was nice. And then I guess they all had to get up today and fly to go to the U20, U21, whatever that is.
Yeah. They have a bunch of guys on
for
the
qualifying.
Olympic qualifying.
They have a couple of players that look really good. Philadelphia.
Yeah, they're not going to spend a bunch of money. Their owner is pretty much a cheapskate essentially. But where he does spend the money is on his youth development.
Yeah.
And I think the thing people forget about youth development, especially in MLS, is a lot of these teams are coming in as expansion teams and then have no existing infrastructure. And so you're not going to be able to sign a bunch of 19-year-olds
Right.
off the street to start your academy with. You've got to start at like 12, 13, 14, and it's going to take 5 to 6 years for those guys to start to come good. The Sounders are seeing that now.
Yeah.
Like guys like Leyva, that just started. Garth just started that philosophy when he got here in 2015. So that's when they started to invest a bunch of money. So you're just starting to see these guys come in, and Philly probably started a little bit earlier than the Sounders did, just because
For
different reasons.
Yeah.
But so they're really starting to see that come into play now, and then you're starting to see some real studs get in, and then you got like teams like Dallas and who have really, and New York, the Red Bulls, who have really kind of were the pioneers in that. But yeah, Philly, they're. If you're not going to spend a bunch of money on high-priced DPs, at least invest in your academies.
Yeah.
And they have done a great job of that, and you're starting to see that come through. Because they subbed on like a 19-year-old in like the 80th minute in LA. It's just like wow, that's.
I mean, there were a couple things, and before I make fun of LAFC's defense, but the guy is it Jakovic?
Yeah.
Who took Walker Zimmerman's place. As a starting center back, actually was pretty good. Like from a tracking back standpoint,
he cut off a bunch of stuff as well.
Just was there more often than not. Their defense is garbage.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
And if both LA teams are going to have garbage defenses,
that means
I'm
El
here for
Trafico is going to be super
9-8.
Yes, that's
Like,
going to be.
But in all seriousness,
Well, it'll probably be like 7-0 because Chicharito probably apparently got score. But
if you're LAFC though, again, I know it's week 2, blah blah blah. You've got to be really upset about a 3-3 draw when you came back 3 times.
Yeah.
And again, they are we're the
They're the
offensive
champions.
destroyers. They're the champions. Yeah, the champions of not MLS. They can't be happy about this. Like better than Bob.
Yes.
Curtin is better than Bob today. Like they cannot be happy about this.
Well, yeah. So they get rid of Zimmerman, who was good for Nashville again against Portland. And
I hate that guy for his penalty kick, and that basically ended his career for me.
Yeah.
I'm over him. Anyway.
But they got rid of him because Nashville gave them a Godfather offer, and they couldn't refuse all of that money. And that's fine, but they didn't replace him with anybody, as you said, worth their salt. And so, yeah, and plus their ethos is just kind of to, just attack. And as we saw in the Western Conference Championship last year, the Sounders had an answer for that.
Yeah. And,
played them off the park, really, in that game. They were by far the better team. And so if you were able to do something approaching keeping Vela from going, insane, then you've got a chance to stay in the game, and that's what Philly did. It helps when you hit, 40-yard bangers, but even
that
outside
was actually one of the dumbest goals I've seen in a really long time. Like even like rec league, like stupid things happen all the time.
I was definitely a hold my beer pub league type. Yeah,
but
I'm
honestly,
just gonna take
like,
a hit from 40 yards
if that's
out.
not in goals of the year at the end of the year,
well,
to vote on,
it's probably not going to make goal of the week because Atlanta has has one in, so that's going.
But
to,
like, that's gotta be here at the end of the year. Also, I would not know how to pronounce that dude's name.
Oh, because I watched it like 30 times, so I should have the pronunciation down pretty well by now. But I mean, just a fantastic game, and I love the MLS After Dark kind of meme, just having just a ridiculous.
What is it? MLS. What is the meme? It's like MLS.
Oh, culture is.
Yes. Did you see the Julie Stewart-Binks So
I
she posts
saw
her
so-
hair.
Yeah, yes,
It's just
yes.
like all over the place, and she's
It's
like,
definitely
MLS culture
80s,
is
yeah.
no one telling me my hair looks like this.
Yeah, it was definitely 80s glam band
They brought
groupie.
it up on the broadcast last night. Like
Oh,
they
did they?
mentioned the meme,
Oh yes, I did see
which
that.
was fantastic. MLS culture is definitely 3-3 with a bunch of bangers.
Yeah, it was like 4 of the 6 goals were ridiculous. Maybe 3 of the 6.
The Vela goal,
Yes.
like again, we see watch
He
enough
does this
Messi,
every week, yeah.
and you see free kicks. The where it went in
Yes.
was insane.
Yeah.
I don't know. And by the way, Blake, who I've no love lost for, was
Yeah,
outstanding.
yeah. It's like one of those things. Like sometimes you give up these ridiculous goals and then you still get like an 8 rating as a keeper because Tim Howard gave up 2 goals against Belgium Belgium in the World Cup, but he still got like a 10 rating because he had like 45 saves.
Speaking of Tim Howard,
yes,
didn't have a good week.
not so much. I don't understand what I mean. Okay, so
I actually
I-
don't understand that.
Well, I suppose I understand from the the aspect of you're a professional athlete.
He's
you
bored.
play as long as you play as long as you can, even if you're not at the top level. You go down a level and you can still probably run with most of the players there. But at some point, you're just sorry, I got
Oh my god!
I got some news here, but I can't.
I'm gonna answer that
Yeah,
question.
you do that while I look at this.
Are you gonna not tell us what this news is?
It's women's national team related. It's not anything. It's paperwork related. So it'll take me way too
If
long
you
in the
could
2
send
minutes that we
a
have
sick
left in the
person
show.
to cough on one person in MLS, whomst would it be?
I would note that's technically assault, so I would not recommend going up to somebody and coughing on them.
But if they happen to walk by,
I think my attorney has suggested that I not answer this question.
Yes.
So my answer is good question.
Yes.
This is, by the way, every business meeting ever where you don't have the answer to a question. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked
I'm
it.
gonna consider
I'm
that
gonna
for a while.
maybe talk to my team about it and get back to you with an answer. Hope. Also, if that was a capo that was mic'd up, they were terrible for a good portion of the match
Well, they're screaming it
because it looked like some random dude in the front of the section.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, LAFC mics up everything, or LA. They have mic'd up everything in any of the matches that you see there.
FYI, I still have a list of their horrible chants. And they are all.
And I gotta say, like, if you were to rip a chant, and again, all supporter groups rip chants globally.
Yeah.
Why would you rip the one that Portland is basically the only team known for? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Hunch Punch says Lenhart.
Up.
I don't even know where that dude is right now.
Building
This-
in Africa.
That
I
was
was
the
about to
last
say
time I saw him.
surfing.
Good call.
Surfing has to have something to do with it.
All right, so it's a little after 9. Do we have anything else to say about the LAFC match other than LOL?
Yeah, it was entertaining. What can you say? It was great. I would watch. Yes.
Better than Bob. So we have a
Prediction.
match coming up this weekend. In theory, we will have a show next week if we're allowed to leave our houses.
We can do like Google Hangout or something like that.
We
if
actually
need
could
to.
do that,
Yes. but-
We probably will have a show no matter what. It'll just be
uh,
maybe in person. Don't know.
yeah, we'll see if
Mickey
society
needs
is
10 more cocktails.
new.
So anyway, Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Houston time. Houston Dynamo. What do you got?
I got a 3-1 Sounders win in this one.
3-1.
That's somewhat that I was. Yeah, I'm going 3-1. I just think the Sounders are well better than Houston at this point. And again, I don't think Houston is going to have a couple of their key pieces. It doesn't sound like. I suppose if Ladero, I mean, I think they got well enough.
If Ladero plays, it's 6-1.
Yeah. I guess I should have caveated that and maybe said if Ladero plays or not. But I still think 3-1 is they've got more than Houston can handle. So that's, Ladero or not, they should win this game. This is the kind of game that you win on the road if you're going for the Supporter Shield.
2-0 Jordan Brace.
Yeah, he does pretty well in Houston.
Yeah.
And I think
Houston sucks.
Yeah, they're just
That's not
Again,
even
if
just
they-
about the team. That's just a Houston like all up.
Yeah, if
But-
maybe if they have Quintero, does cause
We
trouble.
did not promise deuce drops.
No, and that's not going to happen.
It's probably
If
gonna
Dempsey
happen.
comes back and scores a hat trick, then yes.
They probably have a Bach here. We could probably make that happen. Eric will have one.
That's-
Anyway, we're getting real granular. Will Houston blame their attendance on the virus? Yes, 100%. In fact, they've already written the statement. Eric wants to know over/under on possession advantage.
Well, you never. The Sounders kind of go back and forth on that.
Sounders don't really care about possession.
Yeah, so
They're
I-
like possession 43%, 4-0 Sounders.
Yeah.
Like
Hey,
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I would. That's not a metric I would use to judge this game on, at all. So,
I would.
if they have
Is
Ladero,
taking 65 and over a hot take? Yes.
is what in the who now?
Taking more than 65%
Oh,
possession.
yes.
I think that's a hot take.
Yeah.
They
I mean-
right now are not playing as a straight up possession team.
I
We're
get
not-
to be fair,
we're
they
not
don't have
counting
Ladero.
Olays
Yeah.
on passes.
Yeah.
Like
We'll see if again, as you mentioned earlier, having Ladero could change how the team.
93%
Yeah.
possession.
Yeah. I don't think that would happen, but it does. That would change how they function.
Guys,
we
we're
haven't. We
in a
literally
world
haven't seen it.
where you say whatever you want
that's
right
true.
now.
And
So
it's-
93%
it's-
possession. That's happening.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
Only if Ladero asterisk.
Mm-hmm.
Does Nuhu start?
This seems like a kind of game where he would start. Definitely.
Anybody else starts this week that you haven't seen start recently?
I think it'll be the same lineup as last week.
You mean the
Or-
week you didn't watch?
Yeah, the week I didn't watch.
I can't believe you didn't watch the game, Mickey.
Sorry. Yeah, bad fan.
That is an asterisk.
Yeah. I think it's the same. Yeah, same lineup. I can't really see any changes. Maybe who gets to start and they.
What
move-
about Harry Ship?
when does he start though?
He's not starting.
Yeah, he just doesn't start these for Schmetzer these days.
Ibarra probably plays.
I wouldn't see why he wouldn't.
I think you get the same lineup.
I think you have
generally
the same
speaking.
lineup.
Yeah. So, we're both calling for Sounders victories. How many weeks until we all get quarantined in our own homes?
Oh, I think we've got about a month or so. Month to 6 weeks. I'll say 5.5 weeks is the over-under.
5.5 weeks is the over/under. Write it down. If Ibarra scores 7 to 10 goals this year, I will be shocked at this point. I like how Nicholas is like all competitions. I'm like, Campeones Cup doesn't count.
Yeah, U.S. Open Cup. I can see a hat trick in a U.S. Open Cup game.
And we'll play Portland,
Yes.
and Portland will score 8
Yeah.
because we'll start him and Tacoma or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got nothing right now on Ibarra. I really like him as a player, just in general. But I can see where the frustration has come from now, having seen him for 2 weeks.
He is a good player to have on the team, no doubt. But you don't want him starting. I think is what.
Well, here we are.
Yes. Well, I think that's about to come to an end with Ladero coming back, and then they move Roldan to their preferred spot, and then you start bringing him in, as kind of a change of pace or defensive guy. So.
Any other random soccer predictions for this week?
Besides MLS canceling the season, no. I think.
Did you see the short clip of Ronaldo high-fiving no one after getting off the bus. It's actually really good. I retweeted it today, and someone had posted it, and they were like, me greeting all of my internet followers when I wake up in the morning. He literally gets off the bus and just goes like this, and there's no one there.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to take a
Which
look
I'm
at
like,
that.
if you're going to make fun of quarantine,
Yes. Fair.
that's the way to do
yes.
it. We should actually talk a little bit about CCL. Not that we're playing in it.
Yeah. It starts again up this week. Montreal's playing tomorrow.
But the one thing that popped to me was LAFC plays Thursday at home,
Yeah.
has no weekend match, and then plays away at Cruz Azul next week.
Okay. So they've got to buy
That's
this weekend.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like as
Well, I think that's how it was set up.
as things
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for them, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really care who
Oh,
wins it
Yeah, I don't care.
at this point.
It's nice to have some soccer to watch on
It is
on a
gonna
Tuesday
be
evening.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have some things to watch on TV.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain.
But I will be interested to see what happens with CCL given international travel and such.
Yeah.
Because that is a
that's
thing.
Yeah.
Like domestic is one thing. International is a whole nother animal.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with multiple countries' legal situations. So anyway, we're both pulling for Sounders victory. Any other thoughts, opinions, comments? You going to do karaoke tonight?
Vote if you have not already.
Yeah. get
I've
your
got my
votes in.
ballot ready to submit tomorrow. I'm a procrastinator, so
Or maybe you just waited to see if your preferred candidate would still be in the running.
I have no preferred candidates in this particular election,
I'm really hopeful that
except for one who I won't be voting for.
Elizabeth Warren gets a whole lot of votes in Washington because I actually think that's going to happen.
Could be
Or
it.
everyone was a slacker and they're going to wait till tomorrow. And
No, that's me.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's it. It's a little after 9.
Yeah.
We should be back here next week. Thanks for joining us,
Yes.
folks here, folks at home, and thanks to you.
Thank
You going to watch the game this weekend?
Yes, I will try.
Have a good night.
Yeah.